One child was found dead outside, and then another child and 2 adults fatally stabbed inside the home. Police say the suspect, 38-year-old Courtney Gordon of the Bronx, had one prior domestic violence arrest. I'm Jackie Quinn.
And I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Carroll. For today, we'll have mostly cloudy skies with high temperatures into the lower 40s. Then for tonight, snow developing late, up to a half-inch of nighttime snowfall with lows to 33. Tuesday, chance for a rain-snow mixture in the morning, then a slight chance for some light rain or drizzle into the afternoon, high of 39. Wednesday, sunshine returns, low 40s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently 35 degrees.
This is an announcement. A spokesperson who's not a lawyer. The Pulaski Law Firm with the main office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this announcement. This advertisement is not legal advice, and the choice of an attorney should not be based solely on advertisements. Services are not available in all states.
Attention, previous patients or colleagues of Dr. Fabio Ortega. In 2022, Dr. Fabio Ortega was found guilty of sexual abuse of patients. Fabio Ortega's abuse occurred while he was serving as an OBGYN at North Shore University Health System and Swedish Covenant Hospital. If you are a patient of Dr. Fabio Ortega, call 800-892-0841. Dr. Ortega's employers, North Shore University Health and Swedish Covenant Hospitals, failed to protect patients from crimes they knew he was committing. Pulaski Kirker is an expert in holding physicians and the institutions that hire them accountable while protecting confidentiality and the patient's emotional and mental state. If you were assaulted by Dr. Fabio Ortega, call Pulaski Kirker 24/7 at 800-892-0841 for a free confidential consultation. You don't pay anything unless we win. Call 800-892-0841. That's 800-892-0841.
Hey, Doc, nice office. Quick question. If you had to choose, would you give yourself a root canal or run payroll?
Run payroll, no question.
Seriously? Well, have you run payroll before?
Paying my team with Gusto couldn't be easier. Gusto gives me unlimited payroll runs, next day direct deposits, and automatically files my taxes. Saves me time.
Wow, that's nice.
Over here, Doc. I want payroll too.
Choose payroll without the pain. Visit gusto.com to sign up for free.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bates. Anyone will tell you battling cancer is not pretty, and neither are the complications like lymphedema, a chronic disease that can leave anyone undergoing cancer treatment with a lifetime of swelling and pain, often affecting one's entire body and sense of self. If you're facing a cancer diagnosis, discuss lymphedema with your doctor. With knowledge and action, we can learn and live. Learn more at lymphaticnetwork.org.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
CPT Progressive Calendar. Donations are needed to help refugees survive as winter approaches. Emmanuel Lutheran Church in downtown Evanston at Sherman and Lake is collecting donations Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 a.m. till noon. Sweatpants, sleeping bags, blankets, and toiletries are some of the items that are needed. The donations are being picked up by the nonprofit Shy Welcome and delivered to refugees currently being housed at police stations on the west side of Chicago. Join Indivisible Illinois Monday, December 4th at 6:30 p.m. on Zoom for an informative panel discussion on the migrant crisis, causes, challenges, and solutions. The panel will include Illinois Congresswoman Delia Ramirez. If you'd like to register for the event or submit questions to the panel, please email general@indivisible.il.com.
WCPT replay.
Carlos Rocky is here.
You got to vote for the people who have the best chance to stop the greater evil. And don't do the Nader thing. Don't do the...
1 minute.
Yeah. They can't win. Vote for a gopher in your front lawn. They have the same chance of winning.
You too.
Vote shaming, it's reality.
Yeah.
You're vote shaming me.
Vote shaming. Don't let anyone tell you that you're vote shaming them. This country was founded on debate on small political issues.
Right.
That is what it is. It's debate on political issues. It's not shaming anyone. That pisses me off.
It is a debate.
That's a thing.
You want to vote for somebody that's not of either party, that's fine.
Right.
But don't prevent me from telling you that if you do that
exactly.
in a situation where your candidate has no choice of winning, then your vote is going to help the worst evil.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is December 4th, just 21 days until Christmas, 3 weeks away. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Indeed, if you want the best information about the Democratic National Convention, you want to keep it locked right here at 8:20 a.m. That's right. All of you from all over the country, tell everyone about the largest progressive talk radio station in the country and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. That's right. Ilhan Omar and Amy Klobuchar and so many of these progressives are going to be coming to Chicago next summer. But what's going to happen between now and then? I do not know. But today, let me tell you what, we are going to be talking about George Santos. We're going to have Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who actually voted present. Why? The House of Representatives is an interesting body because unlike the U.S. Senate, you can be appointed there. The U.S. House of Representatives, in 10 days, within 10 days of someone's expulsion or removal or death, you have to have a special election. You must be elected to be part of that body. Yeah. So the people have to make the decision about who gets to stay and who doesn't. That's not what happened here. The body did that. They did that with Adam Clayton Powell, and he took his case to the Supreme Court and won. So they excluded him. They couldn't expel him. So they would not allow him to be seated, but ultimately they had to allow him to be seated because the people of Harlem wanted him there. So what do you make of this? Even Speaker Johnson said this sets a dangerous precedent. Because remember, George Santos, for all of his fabrications, has not actually been convicted yet. It was a 56-page ethics report. And you can be investigated by the Ethics Committee in the House of Representatives on a rumor. I'm not defending him. I'm just telling you how it works. You can be put on the rack for a rumor. Yeah. So what about that? And then let's talk about the fact that Israel knew 1 year before October 7th that with specificity that this attack could happen. It was very specific. Someone even saw a military exercise by Hamas. And you have to look at the history of Hamas in Israel. So you remember the PLO? Well, the PLO became the Palestinian Authority, and Netanyahu and other right-wingers said, well, you know what? If we divide the Palestinians, we can conquer them. So what we're going to do is sponsor a counterweight to the Palestinian Authority. And they'll be Hamas. George Soros wrote a big op-ed piece supporting them. A lot of people did. And the Israeli government has always funneled money to them. In fact, there's a very interesting article that says that Netanyahu was protecting Hamas. That's from the Washington Post. Because indeed, we see Qatar involved in these negotiations. Well, Qatar has been involved in the negotiations because they would get money from the Israeli government and then pay Hamas. You cannot make this stuff up. So what do you think about that? I think it's something that we need to unpack. What did they know? When did they know it? The spokesman for the White House, Mr. Kirby, said, well, if they knew something, they sure didn't share the intel with us. Ouch. What is up, everybody? Well, we've got ships over in the area. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Want to hear your thoughts. Hey, Paula. Hey, Raphael. How you doing, Robert? Hello, Andre, Miss Zenobia, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, Jewel from beautiful New York. Got to hear from you, Jewel. Barbara Bacon from beautiful Oak Park. Everybody, please like and share, like and share, like and share. Let's get to some of these headlines in the news today. From the Washington Post, Israel's military is expanding its ground operation in the Gaza Strip over the weekend. In a 24-hour period, 700 people were killed by the IDF. Israeli strikes are hitting densely populated areas in the territory. An estimated 1.8 million, 80% of Gaza's population have fled their homes. It is creating one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes of this era. The U.S. wants Gaza to be governed by the Palestinian Authority, which runs part of the West Bank. We'll see how that goes. Donald Trump can be sued over the January 6th attack, according to judges. The former president is not immune from civil or criminal consequences for his attempts to stay in power after the 2020 election. Two federal courts ruled on Friday. This decision set the stage for an historic legal battle over the limits of presidential power that will probably end up in the U.S. Supreme Court. As we are going to discuss at the bottom of the hour, Congressman George Santos of New York was expelled from Congress. It's only the sixth time in history that this has happened. In the history of the U.S. House of Representatives, this has only happened 6 times. The House voted to expel the New York Republican in response to an array of alleged crimes and ethical lapses. And you can go online and find out how your lawmaker voted. Only 5 other House members, he making the 6th, have been expelled, and none since 2002. Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman on the U.S. Supreme Court, made her transition. Salute to this woman. We dedicate the broadcast to her today. I mean, indeed, she graduated at the top of her class as a law student, and when she got to the law firm, they wanted her to type. She issued the key vote in many cases in her nearly quarter century as a justice. She tried to avoid what she called giant steps you'll live to regret. 93 years of age, she died in Phoenix in her home state on Friday. Complications from advanced dementia and a respiratory illness, according to the court. Those are some of the headlines. Everybody in Chicago, we're going to have a high of 42 degrees, partly cloudy, 38 degrees, Minneapolis, St. Paul. The Vikings and the Bears had time off since the Bears put, a little bit of a whipping on the Vikings on last Monday in the NBA. Everything was dark, but they'll be resuming in another day or so. In the NHL, the Wild 4, Chicago 1. And there you go, everybody. The Lions will be playing the Bears next week, and the Vikings will be playing the Raiders, but that's next week. They have tonight off. I've got Pam Morris, I do believe. Pam Morris, how you doing? It's wonderful hearing your voice. Wonderful hearing your voice. Our gospel sister.
Greeting to you.
Can you believe we're right here at we're not Thanksgiving, we're at Christmas? Unbelievable. And then the new year. Who knew?
I know.
Who knew? Who knew?
High time flies.
Amen. Well, it is wonderful hearing your voice today. I need some good news. I want you to get her book. Put this under your Christmas tree. 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. She talks about her journey as a heart transplant recipient. When you see this woman, you say, well, it's only because she's our gospel sister that she is telling the truth. She looks so robust, and the next couple of days, I want you to come on and talk about that, about being a donor, about being a recipient. We need to do that because so many of us.
So important. It's so important.
It's important. So important. And many African Americans and people of color, marginalized people, feel very insecure about that because we've been so abused by the system. But we see the upside of it too. So there's safeguards that have been built in today that we did not have before, but you still need to be vigilant. Pam Morris, everybody get the book, 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. Put it under your Christmas tree, everybody. And Pam Morris, what is the good news today?
The good news today, and good morning to all of your wonderful viewers and listeners. I appreciate you. It's remember, words can heal. Words can heal. And the reason I'm doing this is because there's so much being said. So many people are talking, but are they saying the right thing? Using these words that I'm getting ready to give to all of you and phrases can increase your chances for success and happiness. I am special. All you have to do is say it. I am special. I am unique. I am unique. I feel good about myself. Oh my God, I feel good about myself. I work on improving myself. As I feel good, I work on improving myself. I keep my commitment. These are words that can heal. I keep my commitment. I have a purpose. I am loved. I am responsible. I'm strong. I can get the job done. I know I can get the job done, whatever it might be. I expect great things to happen. I expect great things to happen. I'm qualified. I am worthy. Because these positive words affect your health. They reduce stress, and they create a wonderful peace of mind. Life is a mirror. You can attract into your life what you radiate. You can attract into your life what you think. And last, you can attract in your life what you say and give and love. So remember, words that can heal. That's it.
As a man
Have a
thinker,
good day.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know, because too often we nurse the hurt, you know, and we need to, I know that's something that I need to not do, something that I'm really working on. And I want to thank you for that today. Everybody, it's Christmas season. Get the book, 57 Days, Wait for a New Heart. It is going to take you on a spiritual journey, and you don't want to miss out. Be blessed by it. Be blessed by it. I love you, Pam Morris.
I love you. Continue having a wonderful day and beyond, and you're special in my life.
Oh.
And I thank God. Bye.
I love you, and you're special in my life.
Okay. Take care.
I love you, and I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it.
You can do about it.
I love Pam Morris. She always gets you, and you're like, okay. I love you. I love you, Pam Morris. 57 Days. Wait for a New Heart. Get that book. Put it under your Christmas tree and put it under someone else's. Guess what, everybody? Dr. Shanina Knighton is in the house. She is back from Saudi Arabia. How are you, Dr. Knighton?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
World-renowned infection preventionist. Okay. You've got 8 minutes plus. What were you over there doing? What happened? I saw the photos of you and your colleagues, you and your husband, and I am so excited. The world-renowned Dr. Shanina Knighton. What were you doing in South? No, I'm not laughing. I didn't
I love it.
I'm not giggling.
Why
did they bring you over there? What were you doing?
So I went over there to talk about my research, which involves innovation. And so as many know, healthcare worker hand hygiene is prevalent, but patients isn't. So I went over to talk about my research, which is currently funded by the National Institutes of Health, National Institutes of Aging, for a $2.9 million grant. So went over to share what it is that I'm doing in the U.S. I also went over to teach about the use of artificial intelligence and technology as it relates to patient safety in nursing. And so hosted some teaching sessions to where I would actually teach nurses what tools they would be able to use to think through innovation in their healthcare settings and being able to keep patients safe.
So what trend are you seeing globally? I mean, what did they want from you? I mean, is hand hygiene something that, it seems like it's a new frontier.
Yes, it is. And for patient hand hygiene, speaking with some of their top scientists over there, I was pulled to the side a lot, highlighted in the fact that they said we've always thought about healthcare worker hand hygiene, but I was surprised to know that they too are behind in thinking about the importance of patients' hands. And so there is some collaborative work, that we're definitely thinking about in the near future as it relates to that. And so that is the notion or a reminder to people that patients rarely clean their hands in healthcare settings because there is a lack of education as well as materials for them to be able to do so adequately. So that was one issue, Santita. The other piece is staffing. So nurse staffing is an issue not just here, but that's the issue globally. Meaning, honestly, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So nurses will leave here to go over there, and nurses are leaving more so from over there to come here. Therefore, they have shortages in being able to take care of their own people.
So is there a new conversation happening globally about infection prevention? Because we were running after a vaccine. They said there's nothing you can do about COVID-19, even though but you said, look, I'm not prescribing anything to you, but I'm saying to you, if you get your immune system together, you have a fighting chance. So there's that.
Absolutely.
Okay, talk to me. What's new? I mean, and what is it about? Are we now taking a new look at health globally? Infection prevention. Is the baseline changing? Are people now believing you don't have to get sick?
So we're on the frontier of that conversation, Santita, I think, which is very important. Like, we're all, meaning globally, undergoing a major healthcare transformation and understanding that the current healthcare system infrastructure is not enough to support 330 million people. So how do you get people more included in their own health? We're starting to see the tide shift to where we were dealing with more reactive health care. There's now starting to be more buy-in from insurance companies, from providers, and from healthcare systems about prevention, and prevention just in general being an important thing in order to be able to keep people healthy. And so that in itself, we're starting to see more of, which is something that was unheard of. Like, people did not want to make a financial investment if you told them, hey, I can do this to help you prevent this particular illness. They would look at you and say, no, if we can treat it, but not prevent it. But now we're starting to have those preventable conversations because we're understanding that the infrastructure as it exists, with people having limited insurance, having no insurance, and having no access, it's starting to cause bigger problems than it is solutions.
So who did you go speak to? How did you get over there?
I went to King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center, which is in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And so they are what's called a magnet hospital. Magnet in the United States is it's a pathway of excellence. It means that the facility in itself has a top tier nursing infrastructure that is set up, and that it is a nursing run facility, which means that they're likely to have a great outcome. So King Faisal Specialist Hospital is the first hospital in Saudi Arabia to have magnet status. And since they got magnet status, they have now been able to help others within their country achieve that same status when it comes to high quality health care.
So we need that in rural and urban America. We need that everywhere.
Yes, and I want to say that what's amazing about it is, so it is being ran by a nurse, which is appreciative, and it is a woman of color, which I'm happy of, and that is because patients need to see people that look like them, and they need to understand that they can have those conversations and know that they're culturally being attended to. And so for that to be, it's not just about creating more staff. It's just not about creating more protocols. Create more spaces for people that will deliver that information. It's individuals that can relate to those patients that are in those beds or that are receiving care.
So do you think that there's more cultural sensitivity in Saudi Arabia?
I do.
What do you mean?
I do. I absolutely do. Meaning, so for example, they're more interested in knowing their patients. And it's not to say that we're not, It's just that when it comes down to artificial intelligence and being able to look at patterns of, let's say, patient visits, looking at, how is it that they can help the patient based off of what resources that they have. It's not just about taking care of someone in a facility, but how can we make sure that they're going to keep up with the same level of care when they go home? Where is their home? What does home look like for them? And are you prescribing them a discharge plan that they'll be able to be compliant with? It's not quite like that here. We assume that it's a one-size-fits-all model, that if you give someone some medication that needs refrigeration, that everyone has a refrigerator. That may not necessarily be the case, or if someone has a refrigerator, I've seen where the freezer is the only way that they can keep their food cold because the refrigerator doesn't get cold. So we have to stop making all of these assumptions at times that everyone has resources, but meet them where they are to give them the best care.
I've got about 30 seconds. What's your takeaway from your visit there?
To be honest, that life is different. Life is different than what it is that I have maybe been subjected to just being here. But it provides a level of optimism with me saying that. It provides me hope. It provides me an understanding that we're all fighting the same fight when it comes to health. But I have an appreciation for being in a city where there wasn't a lot of food additives. There wasn't a lot of unhealthy things. And they took care of people. So everyone ate, and they understood that making sure that anyone can eat is the bare minimum. And so it was refreshing to see someone I was going to say, like, literally live by Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of making sure that people at least have food, shelter, water, and security, which are the basic necessities of life.
So they have a different set of
No
priorities.
homeless.
Okay. All right. That's
That is
important.
correct. No homeless.
That's no homeless and eliminating poverty, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's a takeaway. And pushing health, everybody, and good food for everybody. Think about that. Think about that. We're going to continue to talk with you about your sojourn over there, the world-renowned infection preventionist, Dr. Shanina Knight. We're so proud of her, so proud of her. Hey, Dr. Nita is her handle on social media, HEYDRNINA, HEYDRNINA. Love you, girl. So proud of you. Don't know what to do. Ooh.
I love you too.
Love you, girl. Back in just a minute with Congressman Jonathan Jackson talking about George Santos.
Did I lose you, Santita?
No, I was just trying to make sure that I was off the air.
Yeah, we're in break.
Oh, okay.
You guys are good.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much. How you doing, hon?
So I'm doing good. So we're gonna have to talk about this child pneumonia outbreaks that have been happening in China that's taken on a similar surge of COVID. And yes, it's like just thinking about protecting our kids and what that's meaning in terms of hospitalizations of children. We absolutely don't have enough pediatricians to be able to take care of them. So I think we should definitely talk about some prevention. I am going to post about it today on my page.
Okay, do that tomorrow.
But it's definitely something worthwhile.
We can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, we have to, because we're in December, and I'll be honest, the way that this thing is taking flight, we could be very well in the same position in February where we're seeing those influxes of cases and potential deaths of children if we do not start to think through this more carefully.
Well, you got me. I mean, you got me. I will absolutely do it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so we'll
do it. Let's do that tomorrow.
So we'll talk about that. But yes, and I'm going to call you later today for me to just share. I know I'm going to be preaching to the choir, but for it to be my first time.
No, I want to know. I'm excited for
so
you.
Excited.
I don't know everything. I want to see it through your eyes. You know what I mean? Come on.
Yes. Yes, absolutely change. No, meaning like, for example, in terms of like the awareness and the openness, I'm sure that like that we'll have a lot in common based off of what I know now and maybe what you've seen, which is why you were like, no, you need to go. You need to go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because I just know that when you get out of here, you see things very differently. You know?
Yes.
And there's nothing like having a different view. I mean, there's nothing like having a different view. I just think it's so important. You know, just to see something from another point of view. That to me is very important. And I'm excited that you've had that opportunity, you know, to see how you're viewed, to see how you are, to see how you're treated. You know, particularly in a place where you're a person of color. So you're not this oddity.
Yes.
You know, they're like, no, they expect you to be excellent. You know, it's all of that.
Do you hear that? That part right there.
That part.
That whole expectation of excellence and the appreciation of excellence.
That's right. That's why they said, no, we want her over here. She must come here. Yes. And I say that with all due respect and love. I mean, I think it's great.
It was. And then, too, just to, language, right? Like I learned. And so it just shows how adaptable we can be when we are committed to wanting to learn about others, you know? Like, definitely life changing.
Well, I am excited for you.
I ain't want to come back.
Is that amazing? And
it is. I didn't want to come back.
No,
I think if I have kids and the infrastructure set up, it was just, it felt like me. I felt home. I will be completely honest. I felt like I was at home. Just such genuine, just kind, nice energy wherever I went. And Santita, I love the fact that literally it could be strangers, okay? And it would be...
Change the world, change the world.
Is the congressman there?
We can change the world, change the world.
Yes.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Senator Taylor's not yet.
But Dwight is and Tiller.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. George Santos kicked out of Congress. He is the sixth member in the history of that institution to be kicked out. I am Santita Jackson, talking to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Indeed, if you want the best information and really the guide to what the Democrats are going to be doing at the Democratic Convention, you want to stay right here. So keep it locked, everybody, and tell everybody about us. Indeed, we, during the primary season, were the station with the most time spent listening of any station in this area. Yeah, people listen because we give the facts. How about that? So what about George Santos being kicked out of Congress? Congress is a very interesting institution because unlike the U.S. Senate, the Senate was always like the House of Lords to the House of Commons, right? The House of Lords, you're appointed, you're born into it to the manner born. But this is the people's house. And you must be elected. If the member dies, if the member is expelled, if the member has to be removed from office for any reason, it is mandatory that the governor have an election within 10 days. And then they must be seated 70 to 80 days after that. Elections are mandatory in the U.S. House of Representatives. So it's kind of interesting that the members were empowered to override the will of the people. Got to talk with none other than Congressman Jonathan Jackson about it, who voted present. He didn't vote to expel George Santos. He voted present. And of course, we're joined by Robert Patillo and attorney Robert Patillo. He hosts his own show on WAOK every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist. Congressman Jonathan Jackson, I know you're on the move today, but I wanted to find out from you, what happened and why did you vote present?
Thank you, Santita. I am en route to Springfield to file my petition to seek re-election. So today's a big day. I'm very excited about that. Thank everyone that's afforded me this opportunity. But to answer your question specifically, is that you've laid out the case very well. This has happened now 6 times in American history. It's the people's house. The people, I believe, he's from the 3rd District of New York State. They voted him in. Each one of us has a district that represents roughly 750,000 people. I want it to be their choice who their representative is. And the reason that the Congress has not gone across this line in the past is it's a dangerous precedent. We take a vow, we take our oath that we are sworn to uphold the Constitution. So 3 Confederate congressional people had been expelled for having violated that oath 160 years ago. 2 persons, if you will, since the Confederacy have been expelled only after their conviction. This sets a new precedent that someone can be expelled pre-conviction, pre their trial. This was an ethics report that came out, and 56 pages. To my astonishment, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will, because it's the truth. Quite a few persons, legislative directors and congressional people, never read the report. The report is 56 pages long. It's filled with a lot of accuracy and the truth.
Stop. What did you just say?
I'm not going to repeat it. But it's 56 pages, and in the last page, it has recommendations. In the last paragraph, if you care to go online and see it, it says condemnation. Was there a suggestion? I'm not clear on how the bipartisan members came to the conclusion, having written, they wanted a condemnation, that they decided to go for expulsion, Republican and Democrat. They said the information was so overwhelming and that there were some legal parts that they couldn't get to that only they could have in court. But in conclusion, they want to do expulsion over the condemnation. I'm like, but this is what you've written after you've done your report. Come on. So I, with Congressman Bobby Scott, who I have tremendous respect for, Councilman Kima Williams, they voted no. I really wish I had voted no alongside of them, but my friend Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia, he also voted present, which simply said that we've reduced the denominator by which the threshold, but we were not going along for the expulsion.
I mean, did this sound like shades of Adam Powell to you? I mean, they were, of course, very, very different people, but Adam Powell was...
Well, that's interesting because here you're talking about one of the first African Americans in modern history to get into the Congress, and after 200 years having sanctioned slavery and everything, the first person they wanted to expel was an African American member. So the Congress got pushed back on its heels. Now, think about, this is the institution that since 1789, 234 years, that was created since 1861 to 65, during the height of the Civil War. You've had some of the most arch racist, segregationists. You've had all kind of vile and foul figures, but they were given the opportunity to finish their term. And so, you know, I feel sorry for Mr. Santos. God bless him. That's over. He's gone. He never should have been in there. But let us make sure that we keep the people there. Now what's going to happen is you're going to see the temperature and the tone go up to go after other Democrats. I've heard conversations about our dear friend, Mr. Congressman Bowman, having pulled the alarm that is going to feed and fuel it. And let me put this in context. And some people, when I would mention this to the constituents, weren't necessarily all that pleased. They're like, yeah, get them out. But we are afforded the opportunity to, in leadership, to get more information. And after I shared with them, they were very pleased with my answer. This comes in the background for me personally, that I had gotten threats from the Capitol. I was notified by the Capitol Hill Police in the last 2 weeks. There were credible death threats, and last Sunday they told me they apprehended the person. We've got to bring down the rhetoric on death threats to elected officials so that people are willing to stay in these offices, even if we disagree, from extreme positions, that we can agree to be agreeable and not threaten one another's lives. So now they're like making this job even less attractive for persons that will have a different opinion. So I stand by it. I feel good about it. And when you know more, you can make better decisions. And that's why I made it. I followed the committee's written conclusion, which was condemnation.
Condemnation. Now, what is condemnation? Does that, I mean, because it turns out Adam Powell, they tried to expel him, but they excluded him.
It's first cousin. It's first cousin to like censure, to say that you've had infractions and then let the court deal with it. There's a process in place for the courts to deal with it. And I can understand the other side of the equation, that this Congress, if you want to be a statesman, it's very difficult that they kicked Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. They gave her a censure for interpreting her words one way versus another on what a phrase means to her. The second of which is Ilhan Omar, when they took her off of a standing committee in foreign affairs, that was wrong. So they're doing many things that are unprecedented. And now this is another unprecedented move that has been made.
And we see progressives and African Americans and people of color targeted, or am I wrong?
No, 100%. Some very influential PACs are supporting insurrectionists and supporting people that have been election deniers, election liars, and they're targeting African American and people that have a different view. I think that's wrong. Money's flooding in from all parts of the country to take out representatives, people that are fulfilling the will of their people.
Mm-hmm.
Campaigning finance has to be looked at again in the future. Very important that big money shouldn't come in and sponsor people to take out representatives that were actually doing their job.
Has anyone been in touch with George Santos?
Say that again?
Has anyone been in touch with him? You know, our father has a heart for people who are in trouble, no matter what. And his concern was, he said he's so pressed against the wall. He said, I'm actually worried about it.
Listen, on a lighter note, it could have also been good to keep George Santos in there because he also adds some true color and additional flavor to that constellation of characters that's over there. He's a world-class volleyball player, he says. He's really, kind of modeled himself after the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley, for anyone that's seen that. It's like, I don't know. Nobody's asked the guy for his. If there was a question I had of Mr. Santos, I would want to ask him, what is your real name? Like, he was he Duvalier? Or, I mean, I don't know if anybody asked him for his birth certificate. Like, who is he? That was my burning question all along when they started coming up with all these alias names and taking money from dogs and veterans. And so I'm glad he's gone. That chapter's behind us. But the precedent I do not like.
You know what, Congressman? I've got Dwight McKee and Attorney Robert Patillo. Attorney Robert Patillo, your thoughts?
This is one of those times I really wish I was on the Hill as a communications director or doing policy directly with regards to campaign messaging around this, because this plays directly into the point that Democrats have been trying to make for the past 5 years, it seems, that you have a completely unserious Republican Party. That is one thing to steal from your constituents. It's another thing to steal from your constituents to get Botox and buy makeup from Sephora and go to the Hermes store and buy shoes, etc. And at a period of time when the American people are suffering the most, when we're dealing with a cost of living crisis, where working 40 hours a week does not make you enough money to pay rent in any major city in the United States of America, when you're seeing tuition costs, grocery costs spiral out of control, the Republicans are spending their time buying makeup and Botox and going down to the theater in Colorado for date night and doing everything except for the will of the American people and the work of the American people. And it's just from a simple mathematics point, you have George Santos' seat, which is more likely going to go to a Democrat. The Lauren Boebert seat, which will probably flip to the Democrats this fall. You have other Republicans who have retired or are not running for re-election. Also, you have the 4 seats that are being judicially created under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act in North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Democrats have a real opportunity here to take as much as a 10-vote lead come next election cycle, but it's going to take actually having a type of communication staff in place that can really exploit many of these missteps by Republicans and remind the American people that while they were getting Botox, we were passing infrastructure. While they were at Sephora, we were passing climate change legislation. While they were at the movie theater, we were pushing through a spending bill that kept the government funded. And if you give Democrats the opportunity to finish the fight and take it on through the end, we can finally have Obamacare be completed with a government option. We can finally have the Study Commission on Reparations pass the Senate. We can finally have the George Floyd Justice Policing Bill. But it takes serious legislators who are willing to put the work in order to get those things done. And I'm just not seeing the Democrats take as much of a victory lap on this as they should have on the Sunday shows and in the press right now, because I always feel that they have a communications apparatus that's either unwilling or unable to articulate to the American people what is going on in Washington, D.C. and how it directly affects them.
Mm-hmm. Congressman, you want to respond to that before we bring on Dwight McKee? Well, Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Congressman Jackson on this. Is that I think it's a bad precedent to take somebody out of office that's duly elected and has a constituency, and he should be accountable to his constituency, not to the Congress. I think it really took him out because he was an embarrassment and a barometer. That it was not what he did so much as how he did what he did, which embarrassed them. But also was a barometer to how things are done on different levels in Congress. That it is not the in many cases, is not the sophisticated political science proposition that they try to tell us about. It is, gaming and deception and exploitation of position and resource. And I think that he exemplified that in such a way, it became a danger to other people who were doing that. I know the last thing he said when he got put out was, now don't let me start talking about what some of these other guys here are doing, which is worse than what I'm doing. And so I think they got him out to silence him, not to reprimand him so much as to silence him. But it's a dangerous precedent because what it opens up is that other people who you disagree with, it gives you then the option to censor them. And that it violates the rights of these constituency, that 750,000 people that Jackson talked about. It violates their right to have representation. They should deal with that. If they don't like him, put him out. If they do like him, keep him. And it's not any different than I see them trying to do to Trump in terms of taking him out because they don't agree with him, or Trump trying to do with Biden, trying to take him out, use his son to take him out. I just think it's a bad precedent, and I'm glad that Brother Jackson had enough courage to not get swept up in the hoopla.
I really do appreciate that, Congressman Jackson. I sent him a text when I saw it. I almost cried. I said, "I'm so proud of you. I don't know what to do." Because I see you looking through.
And Santita, I just want to say that. And Santita, I want to say, I'm not this guy's defender. Okay, To me, he's like the talented Mr. Ripley. Okay, he played volleyball. He can't run 5 feet. I mean, it's like the guy is like. It's like comical. Something's wrong with him, like literally, seriously. Like, this is a pressure-filled job position, and to want this sort of like attention and be so wrong is just like awful. But having said that, to what Dwight was saying and to what Brother Patil was saying, The people there voted him in. That's the main issue to me. The second part of that, Santita, is that he may have 5 or 10% of people that still like him there. Better than 50% of the people voted him in. It's a 2-year term. Had they done nothing, he would be out in 11 months. If that's what the voters in that district wanted. And this story was broken while he was seeking election. So what's one of the takeaways I would have? Read your local papers. You don't have to wait for the New York Times and the national newspapers. This can be a tremendous push for the local media to step up. And people ought to get more in tune with their local media. The story was broken. Then it became embarrassing subsequently when the New York Times broke the story. But they were credible people. So I love the local press. I love the local stories. Love you as my sister, but I love your voice on being on the local news and informing people. So the big six are good, but also tune in to your local news people, the people that do the research.
And who know the people, right? I mean, you're the closest federal representative to us. I mean, the senators tend to be a little further away from us, and farther away from us. But your congressional representative, this is your federal representative, and they literally live next door to you. It's a big deal. Do they see a Democrat getting that seat? Yes. I'm sorry, Congressman. Yes.
No, thank you, dear. If I could put it in perspective, so I was elected in November of 2022. I was sworn in January of 2023. The petitions for re-election went out in September of 2023. I'd only been in office sworn in for 9 months, and we're back on the ballot. I'm driving down to Springfield right now to file my petition to seek a second term. It's a 2-year cycle. I'm back on the ballot for the primary in March. God willing, I need your vote. And the election held in November of 2024. The presidential races start in another 42 days or something. It's a short cycle, extremely short on the members of the House of Representatives. You can, when there's a vacancy in the U.S. Senate, the governor appoints the representative. If something happens with the president, there's a succession plan. Number 3 in line, or 2 in line, if you will, behind the vice president is the Speaker of the House. It's meant to be in that balance, which I think is a very excellent construction. The senator, the member of the House of Representatives, is a closer in succession to the presidency than any senator. So there is a balance in there, and the ecosystem, I can't appreciate its architecture, and I just don't want this to start on throwing people off committees. Unfortunately, Republicans have started that, and I don't want people being thrown out of office. The 2 persons that did get removed was only after their conviction. So George wanted to fight it out, but I'm not talking about George. He's a funny guy. I'm going to miss seeing his little sweater in the back in the little Freedom Caucus area. And but he says he's got receipts, and I thought he was quite serious. And I want to know the guy. He says it's a wife beater. Let's do him batter up on deck next. You know, whatever George did, that's wrong. But if there's some wife beaters in there, let's go get them.
Let me let Anita say hello to you before we go. Anita, because Anita loves Congressman Jackson. Anita, you got about a minute.
Well, my first experience with Congressman Jackson was when he was after the guy that was putting electrodes on people and forcing confessions. You could feel it as soon as you walked up towards the stairs of Operation Push. So I got an impression of never seeing him. But look, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. was probably not getting the funding he needed for the people he represented. And they ousted him out along with Blagojevich, who supported him in allowing people not to be oppressed. So I don't take lightly that people are being silenced because that South suburban area and it finally had gotten a champion and we just lost it, you know, and it's not being built back. And I had to leave that area and put my kids in a different school district because Chicago businesses was taking everybody out and throwing them in the South suburbs with the middle class people, white and black, and building their empire there.
So now, Anita, what do you say about George Santos?
You know what? I didn't hear exactly what happened. My son was trying to tell me, but I was busy this weekend. But I hear that somebody put him out, and I was like, how did that happen? Because it seemed like it just happened before to somebody else. So, you know, if it's somebody being put out because they don't want them to talk, I experienced that firsthand and being unfairly dealt with. And I had to move out of my area because of that. You know, this is not good. This is not good. This is oppressive government. This is not a democracy. And civil rights is the only community of people in this country that's keeping the democratic, where everybody has a voice alive.
Well, hold on, Anita. I've got 1 minute I want to give to Congressman Jackson. Congressman Jackson, really under a minute. What do you want us to know?
Hey, Santita, I just want to say keep doing what you're doing. I'm tuning in, listening to you and Brother Dwight and Attorney Capillo and yourself. Love WCPT. Keep the people informed. Keep telling the truth, and things will get better.
Well, you know I love you. You can't help it.
Love you, girl.
Love you. Love you. Love you. Love you. I love him. I love my sweetie. That's my baby brother. I love him so much. Look, who can believe Dwight McKee? I shared a room with him until I was 7. Ooh. And look at him now. I love you, Congressman Jonathan Jackson. My baby brother.
Love you, dear.
I love you with all my heart. Let's talk about Israel. Love you, sweetie. Let's talk about Israel and what they knew. The New York Times said, hey, they knew about the October 7th attack. They had credible intelligence. We kept hearing that. And now it's official that they had been told with specificity that this attack would happen on October 7th. Or the October 7th attack was in the making. What do you make about that? And what about the relationship that Israel has with Hamas? See, they wanted Hamas because Hamas was a counterweight to the Palestinian Authority. Boy, talk about reaping the whirlwind. More of the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820. And go to santitajackson.com, everybody. Got my website up. Sending you much love. Back in just a minute. Ooh, you all, Dwight McKee and Robert Patillo.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, this made me read more about Adam Clayton Powell, and it made me upset all over again, thinking about him and how he was kicked out. Oh, whole thing. It's a lot. When he said he's got receipts, he's gonna start telling on people, he still might do that. Lord have mercy.
Oh, he's doing it right now on Twitter.
Is he really?
Yeah.
He is crazy.
And expect to tell all book. Expect to tell all book.
Here goes a tweet from him from an hour ago. Update on the outlandish behavior of Representative Williams. I am told that there will be an ethics complaint filed with OCE and potentially a police report for assault. A very drunken Brandon Williams attacked 2 former staffers who resigned from his office earlier this year due to his terrible temperament and awful treatment of his staff. Brandon on Thursday, November 30th, physically assaulted one of his staffers after he threatened the other one by saying he would end him. Long story short, this is just the more exposure of the rotten decay of the pompous assholes in Washington, D.C. that represent no one but themselves. Representative Williams should resign in disgrace for attacking young staffers and always being in a drunken tirade in the chamber, reeking of alcohol. I don't have a horse in this race, so I won't file a complaint, but look forward to sharing a copy of it when it's given to me.
Ooh. Oh my word!
And if you listen to how one of the Black Caucus members treated their staff about 2 weeks ago, and cut them out.
Sheila Jett-Lee.
It was obscene, and it is, there is a underside to this to politics that people don't see, that he became a symbol of. And so that's why I said that the goal was not so much to punish him as to silence him, because he's the kind of personality, the narcissistic personality. He's going to use this as a reason to tell all that he can tell. So expect a tell-all book not far down the line.
Well, I think even before the tell-all, we're going to see him have the primetime interview, sitting down with Gayle King or Oprah, something like that. Then we'll see the tell-all. Then we'll see him on the series of reality shows, because he's always been interested in the fame and the fortune more so than politics. You know, whether it's being the notorious drag performer Katira Ravache, or some of the more outlandish tales he's made up about his biography. It's always been about self-promotion. And so between now and when he goes to prison, I think he's going to be making the rounds and getting as much press and media as possible. But this reminds me also of Madison Cawthorn, the Republican congressman, the young guy in the wheelchair who was a rising star, but he got thrown out of the Republican Party and ultimately resigned from Congress, not for any of the crazy stuff he did, but for revealing that Republicans had cocaine-fueled orgies. And you're not supposed to talk about that out loud.
Yeah, that's why he got thrown out. Oh, man. Oh, boy. These folks. It just does not stop now, does it? Nope. He said he was bringing receipts. I said, all righty. Well,
and in reality, I think that if George Santos was, as Dwight said, less of a narcissist and had some good communications people around him, most of the accusations made against him could have been explained away. Part of a congressman's job in re-election is there's a physical aspect to it. And you can make the argument that Botox and Ozempic and buying clothes, those are normal campaign expenses to make yourself presentable to the public. And if you dive into most Congress people's congressional records, you'll see them buying things along those lines. Maybe not as extravagant. He maybe went a little bit over the top with it. So those aren't outlandish expenses as he's been charged. And then on the issue of using donors' credit cards, that has to be proven in a court of law. And I think that if Santos had made those arguments, maybe that would have saved him from the ultimate expulsion.
I think they wanted him out. I think that your primary point really has primacy. They wanted him out. I mean, it's just like they wanted my brother Congressman Jackson out. There's some people they want out. They wanted Jim Trafficant out. They wanted Adam Powell out. There's some people who they want out for various and sundry reasons, and when they want you out, they get you out. And it's arbitrary. I mean, you get called up before the ethics committee on a rumor, not on anything other than a rumor, and they can ruin your life on a rumor. On a rumor. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen.
Which correspondent was that said that they were involved in a war? Did they worship all of this
Brian Williams
getting shot down? And how?
Brian Williams, NBC.
That's right, Brian Williams, who had a whole exaggerated life, and yet they act like this is something unique and new. That a lot of these people manufacture their resumes and their experiences.
Absolutely.
I'm going to start doing the same thing. If anybody asks, I was the vice president and CEO of Rainbow Push.
Okay.
Also, I was a U.S. senator for 3 weeks. What else? I rescued some people. Yeah, I'm going to put everything in there.
Oh, my goodness. I love it. Bryce Green. Okay, Jonah and Dr. Gibbs, are my people there?
Yep. Good morning.
Good morning. I know Dr. Gibbs is running in and out. Jonah, how you doing?
UCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
We can change the world.
Good morning.
Change the world. Change the world. Yes, we can. We can can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, dedicating the show today to the first woman on the Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor. Made her transition at the age of 93. She went back home to Phoenix, Arizona. Can you believe she graduated at the top of her law school class? And when she got to the law firm, they assigned her typing duties. Yes. God bless her. God bless her. The great Sandra Day O'Connor. Whatever you felt about her politics, I mean, just the trail she blazed as a woman in that space. She has all of my respect. Sending all my love to you today, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and WCPT. Indeed, if you want to find out what's really happening at the Democratic Convention, you want to keep it locked right here on WCPT 820. And if you want to get the truth, the real news, stay right here. It turns out during the last election cycle, we were the station with the most time spent listening of any station in the area. That's right. You listen because we bring the facts. I am Santita Jackson. Go to santitajackson.com. I just kicked that off and we're just populating it more and more and more. I want to know what you think about it. Hey, everybody. And call us at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about Israel. Israel knew. It turns out they knew. They had intelligence, credible, specific intelligence about the October 7th attack. What do you make of that? What do you make of that? And what do you make of their relationship with Hamas? Indeed, there's a Washington Post report that says that Netanyahu was protecting Hamas. Well, you know, we saw Qatar leading the hostage negotiations. Well, Israel gives them the money to pay Hamas. Yeah, their salaries. And Israel wanted Hamas because they supported Hamas because they didn't want to deal with the Palestinian Authority. They didn't want to deal with the Palestinian Authority because they wanted to separate, divide, and conquer the Palestinian people. They said, no, they should not be united under one government. What we'll do is create an alternate government. And that's what they did. And now look at what we've got. It seems that Hamas did just what Israel wanted them to do. They created some offense that made them do something horrific on October 7th, and now something horrific, genocide is happening as a consequence. We've got to talk about this today, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. What do you make of this New York Times report that says Israel knew? They knew. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let me know what your thoughts are right here as we have this magnificent panel to talk with us about it. Leading the headlines in the Washington Post, Israel's military is expanding its ground operation in the Gaza Strip. Israeli strikes are hitting densely populated areas. Indeed, over one 24-hour period this weekend, 700 people were killed in Gaza. More than 10,000 bombs have been dropped. More than 15,000 people have been killed. Wow, everybody. Donald Trump can be sued over the January 6th attack. According to judges, the former president is not immune from civil or criminal consequences for his attempts to stay in power after January 6th. After the 2020 election, Representative George Santos was expelled from Congress. The House voted Friday to expel him, making him only the sixth member in the history of the institution to be expelled from the House, not because he was convicted, but because of an ethics report in which it is alleged that he committed misdeeds. We will see, but he is out of the U.S. House of Representatives. And of course, Sandra Day O'Connor, the first female Supreme Court justice, has made her transition at the age of 93, everybody. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 42 degrees. Partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 38 degrees, partly cloudy. In the NFL, well, next Sunday, the Vikings and the Bears will be playing, not this Sunday because they just played last Monday. They'll be playing, Vikings will be facing off against the Raiders next week, and the Lions will be facing off against the Bears. NBA had a day off, at least our teams did, and in the NHL, the Wild 4, Minnesota, and Chicago won. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about what Israel knew when they knew it. Who knew what? We need to know all of this. And why does it matter? It matters a whole lot. I mean, particularly, I don't know why we're not examining the relationship that Israel has had with Hamas. Indeed, the Washington Post had an explosive article in which they said that Netanyahu was protecting Hamas because he had a hand in creating Hamas. And Hamas did their dirty work for. Wow, you cannot make this stuff up. But with specificity, it was known by the Israeli government that an October 7th style attack was being planned by Hamas. And yet no one paid attention, even though there was a military drill that ran through the attack. You got to talk to me about that. Of course, joining Dwight McKee and attorney Robert Patillo are Dr. David Gibbs, professor of history at the University of Arizona, Jonah Karsh, brilliant pianist, political lead from If Not Now Chicago, and Bryce Green from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. Bryce, let me start with you. Coming from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, what do you make of this report?
Well, this report is the latest in a long line of reports indicating some degree of foreknowledge by Israel of these attacks. The New York Times report goes in detail about how there was evidence of an attack involving things like motorcycles, paragliders, breaches at the border, basically all of the things that we ended up seeing on 10/7. Then this report was allegedly, their excuse for not acting on it was that they dismissed it on the grounds that they did not believe that Hamas had the capability to carry out such attack. You know, the typical imperial hubris. But you know, some of the more critical observers have noted that, well, this attack by Hamas did allow Israel to carry out, an attack on Gaza in order to advance one of their long-standing aspirations. In other words, removing the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip and ethnically cleansing the area of Gaza. If you look at statements from Israeli officials and the party platforms of the major Israeli political parties, it's pretty clear that this is a long-standing goal. Annexation of the West Bank and, some sort of solution to the Gaza problem. And so some people have speculated that Israel has had this information and there were elements within the government that deliberately decided to withhold it from the either the relevant officials or the public or something in order to allow this attack to go forward and justify a massive response. And there is some degree of evidence to support this beyond the reports of foreknowledge. We know that the reports of foreknowledge are important. We know that Egypt had warned Israel of something coming from Hamas in the days leading up to the attack. We know the Americans also had intelligence about something coming in the weeks leading up to the attack. We know that from Israeli press that there were people in charge of monitoring video cameras aimed at Gaza. And we know that they had warned repeatedly that something major was going to happen. But, beyond that, we see parallels with other mysterious events in, world history. The video evidence of the breach of the Gaza border, according to Israeli investigators, has suspiciously disappeared. And so we may never get the video evidence to understand how many people were streaming towards the border, when, what, and how. This is critical evidence understanding the major story. But this idea that Hamas did not expect to be as successful as they were, I mean, that's bolstered. The narrative originally was that the Hamas attacked this music festival with the deliberate goal of killing as many as possible. Well, that turns out to be impossible, given that the music festival was only moved to its current location, to the location that it was, just days before the attack. Any plan for attack would have had to go back far longer than that. We also know that the Israelis took an extremely long time to respond to the initial breach of the wall, hours even. And even in their response, they ended up killing several of their own people. Now, we don't know how many, and we don't know how many were killed by Palestinian militants, or we don't have that information. But we do have information confirming that not only Israeli tank shells, but also Israeli Apache helicopter fire was responsible for a sizable number of the deaths, to the point where Israel even believed that it had killed 200 of its own people for some time. When they realized that those were actually Palestinians, they revised their death tolls down. So all of this raises questions as to the nature of 10/7, the media coverage of it, and parallels between other major attacks in world history that really should give us pause before jumping to any conclusions about what 10/7 was and what the response should be. Unfortunately, the response has been a genocidal campaign, and understanding the origins of that, I think, is critical to understanding where we are today.
Jonah Karsh, if not now, what do you make of this? Because we heard about this in the immediate aftermath of October 7th, and now the New York Times, no less, has come out with this report. What does this mean?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head in your open on this topic. Netanyahu and the Israeli right have varying degrees, in my view, of attitudes towards how to deal with the Palestinian issue. Some are outright annexationist and favor even ethnic cleansing and forced transfer of Palestinians, and we're seeing that position gain more and more steam as this genocidal campaign in Gaza continues. There was also a policy of managing the conflict, that quote unquote managing the conflict. Of course, as October 7th shows, you can only manage an apartheid system for so long before people decide that they've had enough and that they want to do something about it, whether violently or non-violently. And of course, October 7th was violent in ways that are horrifying. But the policy of the Netanyahu government, to some extent, was, as you said, to allow Hamas to remain in power in order to protect against the international claim that, or in order to make it harder for the international community to claim that peace was on the horizon and you only needed to negotiate with one Palestinian entity. And it was beneficial for Netanyahu every now and then to have a skirmish with Hamas and, as the Israeli right says, quote unquote, mow the lawn in Gaza, so that he could claim that he was doing something about terrorism. But of course, each time these military episodes in Gaza happened, Hamas got stronger because there is no military solution to an apartheid and occupation system. And so it's alarming that Israel had these warnings about what was going to happen, that mostly women members of the army that were viewing videos of Hamas training for an attack like this in Gaza, their warnings were ignored. And I think it is evidence of hubris in the Israeli government and a belief that this conflict could be managed indefinitely without any fundamental change in the situation on the ground for Palestinians. And that, unfortunately, blew up in the face of Israel. And one could make the argument that for those elements that were looking for an excuse to do something more genocidal and violent in Gaza, that October 7th provided that opportunity. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that Israel wanted something like October 7th to happen. I think it was a tremendously traumatic moment for the country, but there was a lot of hubris involved, and clearly very clear warnings that were ignored.
Why would they ignore that? I mean, that to me is it's so heinous, and it was designed to be so destructive. That to me is something you pay heed to that, Jonah.
Yeah, I really do believe that they should have paid more attention to the warnings. It's clear they didn't make it all the way up the chain of command. I think there was because Hamas was asking Israel to let more workers in Gazan workers inside of Israel to work, and Israel agreed to that after the war in 2021, that there was a perception among some that Hamas was moderating, and that as a group that's adept in psychological warfare, that these drills were just another example of them sort of trying to play with Israel and scare them. But there was a sense that there wasn't a credible plan. Now, I think if you look below the surface, that reveals itself to be completely wrong, and it was proved wrong. But I think it's something about the attitude of an occupier and the attitude of a country that has experienced impunity for its actions for so long, expecting that the status quo can continue without any changes.
They would never. That is hubris. It is an excessive pride and arrogance when you think that you're above. You're not. You're involved. Dr. Gibbs, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to, chime in on the interpretation of hubris here. And what you had is an Israeli official almost contempt for the Palestinian people, and to some extent for the whole Arab people, really. That was to such an extent they disregarded evidence that they were actually planning a credible attack, because, again, they just couldn't imagine that the Palestinians were that capable, as evidently they were that capable. There's precedent for this, of course, both in Israel as well as elsewhere. I mean, you have the 1973 war, which was very similar. You had Syria and Egypt planning this massive attack, Israel having all sorts of intelligence indicating the attack was coming, but disregarding it, because, again, they just had a very contemptuous attitude about their adversaries, in that case, Egypt and Syria, in this case, Palestine, but nevertheless, consistently that Israel underestimates their enemies. If I recall correctly, I think afterwards an Israeli general was asked about their failures to anticipate the attack, and his response was, well, we figured we were only dealing with Arabs, not with Germans, with the implication Germans they might take seriously, the Arabs not so much. This is definitely a colonial mindset. Israeli officials don't like the phrase, colonial, but that really is what we're dealing with here, a colonial situation and a colonial ideology that has a contempt for the people you're dominating, which can lead to military disasters for the colonial powers, as has just happened, as happened in 73. Something somewhat similar, I would say, again, with the 9/11 terrorist attacks, that, the United States had this sort of all these indications the attacks were coming, indication after indication after indication, and they weren't acted upon because the U.S. just had this tremendous sense of its own omnipotence that the United States simply couldn't be attacked that way. So this is this kind of overconfidence comes with power, and it doesn't always work out very well for the powerful. I think that the Israelis undoubtedly were very upset about the attacks of October 7th. No matter, even if undoubtedly there were cases of friendly fire, Israeli helicopters, killing their own people accidentally and so on. Nevertheless, the attacks conducted by Hamas really were horrific, and I'm sure the Israelis were, as the whole world was, very upset about seeing the pictures of them and so forth. But at the same time, the Netanyahu government, I suspect, did look at this as an opportunity to implement their vision of perhaps increasing their dominance over Gaza and the West Bank, possibly ethnically cleansing both and annexing both. I'm sure that's being discussed and considered. And whether they'll do it or not is another matter, but it's certainly being considered at the highest levels in Israel. So I think all of these factors really has to be taken into account in interpreting how Israel had failed so disastrously to anticipate and counter this attack.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Does it make a difference to you that this was known, and well, it didn't get all the way up according to reports, didn't get up to the highest levels of command. It gives you deniability, but somebody knew, Robert Patillo. Some people knew.
And, if you listen to everything Netanyahu said during his re-election campaign last year, if you listen to everything that his cabinet ministers said, because Netanyahu assembled the most right-wing cabinet in Israeli history. If you listen to what the protesters said after the judicial reforms that Netanyahu put into place, if you listen to the statements Netanyahu made when he came to visit the White House, the dismissive he was of President Biden, similar to how dismissive he was of President Obama before him and their calls for peace. It does not seem in any way, shape, or form outside of the realm of possibility that Netanyahu was just simply seeking a casus belli in order to eradicate the Palestinian people and put the Gaza Strip under direct Israeli control. He has now said that Israel will be in charge of administering the Gaza Strip once they have, quote-unquote, cleansed it of Hamas. There's clearly a operating Palestinian government which has been working on negotiating a two-state solution. Israel has decided not to focus on that, but rather to focus on Hamas. No weapons go in and out of the Gaza Strip without the express knowledge of the Israeli government. It is a completely cut-off strip of land. The Iranians tried to resupply the Palestinians by dropping crates into the sea, at which point they would send divers out to try to retrieve arms and bring them on shore. It was a system which would be impossible to execute this type of large-scale attack. So just as years later we found out that America had foreknowledge of Pearl Harbor, for example, just as we had foreknowledge of 9/11, this does not seem out of character for a nation that is seeking a reason, a raison d'etre, to be able to go in and execute their military objectives, just as Netanyahu clearly stated during his re-election campaign. And I think that the international community needs to take this information and increase the calls for a permanent, lasting ceasefire and a permanent, lasting two-state solution at the 1967 lines. Netanyahu has made it clear he does not want 1967 lines. He does not want 1947 lines. He wants 2000 BC lines. He wants the historical kingdoms of Israel and Judah to be reformed, that for the Israeli people to be a beacon of hope for all the people of their community throughout the entirety of the world, and to be a dominant regional superpower to counterbalance both Iran and Saudi Arabia. The question is no longer whether or not that is his goal. He has stated that goal very clearly. The question is, what will the international community do about it, and whether or not the Palestinian people who have been in exile for the better part of 80 years will have the right to return, and will have the right to have a state of their own.
Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Okay, are we out?
You're in break.
Oh, okay. All right. Ooh, Jonah, this is everyone. This is a lot. I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing this gentleman's name correctly. Branko, is it? Wait. Marcus, was it?
You talking about Branko Marcetic?
Marcetic. Yes. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I know I need to go overseas to do this. You know me, I start singing in other languages. You start doing your ABCs to music. When I see this.
Branko's he's a great writer.
He's coming. Oh, I love his work. I'm going to have him on here right now. Well.
Oh, nice.
In a second. So this will be great because, I love
I'll say hi to Branko and then I got to get going.
Okay. Leaving us,
Final 2 weeks of school.
You and David Gibbs. He's grading papers, and you write them. So there you go. Oh boy, but
I'll have to say hello to Branko, whose work I like a lot as well, and then I'll probably have to sign off as well.
Okay. Well, no, I know you're breaking some hearts.
I'm here as long as you need, though.
no, Jonah, I have you. I still have you on. I'm not letting you go.
Good.
Get out of here. And we're trying to work out the time with Dwight so that we can meet with Maya over at Push tomorrow, over at the offices.
No answer from Branko yet.
Okay,
yes,
no worries.
We heard. I'd love to join.
No, you're more than welcome.
And Maya's a good friend.
We'll come up with the time, and because she has more space tomorrow and she didn't have it today. So we're just trying to work out the time with Dwight and Mrs. Jackson, who's leaving town. So I was trying to catch my mother before she left. She has to leave the office at 4. And so and Dwight can't get there until about 3:30. So maybe we'll meet at 3. And then that way we can dovetail into we'll be able to get Dwight and maybe 3:30. We can meet with
it's going
Dwight.
straight to voicemail.
Okay,
no
well,
ringing.
Okay, we'll just keep trying, and then if we get him, great. But thank you, Matt. I have to thank Matt today. He runs the station, and it turns out 2 of my operators are under the weather right now, and all at one time.
no.
A whole lot of people are out ill, and so please send Henry and Devin your love and healing light, because they work so hard. And let me tell you, coming in and doing this show is not an easy thing. It kills your Sunday night and your Monday night and your Tuesday night and your so they're really the best. And so is Matt calling me this early in the morning, but I already had my lashes on. I was ready. Oh, look. The glue is dry by 5 a.m. I am in the mix. I got these lashes on. Oh, my word.
Bronco Marchetich is online.
Okay, Mr. Marchetich, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you going?
Oh, love your work.
I appreciate that.
Yesterday's Man. Dwight, I don't think we can tell people what it is. Yesterday's Man, the case against Joe Biden, the book that Dwight would have written. Dwight McKee. And but you've got friends here. You've got Dr. David Gibbs. You've got Bryce Green, who's going to be leaving. And, of course, you've got Robert Patillo. So everybody say hello. And Dwight McKee, who you've not met, a new friend.
Okay, coming back.
We're coming up.
Hey, Bronco. Your work's always great. It's good to talk to you in person for the first time. Or I guess over the
Stand
phone.
by and let you all say hello. So you all can give him his due. And we're going to keep going.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
To a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Israel knew. Someone knew. There's New York Times report that says that Israel's knew about the Hamas attack more than a year ago. We've been hearing about that. We heard that Egypt tried to let them know, and then we just kept hearing. And now the New York Times has what many people are calling an explosive report. Some people are saying this could have been a pretext. Hamas, has been doing. Now Gaza is being leveled. So I don't know. I don't know how to read this. I want to know what your thoughts are. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I'm going to let this panel, some of whom are leaving. Dr. Gibbs is going to break someone's heart. Someone's going to get an A. Someone's going to get a B when they thought they were going to need an A. Someone's going to get a C. He's breaking hearts, but he's going to tell the truth. And of course, professor of history at the University of Arizona, right here on the WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and Bryce Green, who is a student who's trying not to get his heart broken. Of course, the brilliant one. Of course, he is from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. And we're so excited to have Jonah Karsh, political leader from If Not Now. Dwight McKee, I'm so glad that you're still here. Brilliant social scientist, also known affectionately as Dr. D. And attorney Robert Patillo. Robert Patillo, you helped me to get my pronunciation together. Bronco Marchetich from Jacobin Magazine. I love this magazine. I love it. And he is the author of he is a Goodman Institute Fellow at In These Times Magazine. I love that magazine too. I love it. And he is the author of the book, Yesterday's Man, The Case Against Joe Biden. I didn't say that. He said it. Amen at you, Bronco. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, very well. How are you going?
Oh, we love your work. Before you go, I think Dr. Gibbs and Bryce Green, certainly they wanted to extend their courtesies to you. Bryce, Dr. Gibbs?
Hi, Bronco. I've always followed your work, particularly on Ukraine war. It's excellent, and I just wanted to compliment you on it. It's keep going.
It's important. Bryce Green.
I appreciate that.
Bryce, do you have any? Have you left yet? Oh, okay. Well, Bryce wanted to say the same. You know what? I think you certainly get your share of detractors. I think it's important for you to know that you have a lot of people out here who anxiously await everything that you write, and I'm among them. And I want to thank you for being with us today. What do you make of this New York Times report? I mean, on the heels of what Egypt said. Egypt said, "Look, we warned you. We said Hamas was going to do this." And first of all, what do you make of the report? Is it credible to you?
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty credible to me. I mean, it sounds like the New York Times obtained documentation that showed that this, that as early as a year ago was being followed. I mean, yeah, as you say, it's not just this report. We also heard immediately after the massacre happened that Egypt had warned Israel. We've heard so many reports since then. I mean, there have been multiple reports about Israeli border security officers flagging for Israeli intelligence that they were seeing all kinds of Hamas activity that suggested something big was being planned, right down to seeing kind of border posts, kind of mock border outposts being built by Hamas to kind of train on, and that just being ignored, basically. The Israeli intelligence also flagged for Netanyahu that something may be coming, and him ignoring it. So to me, what this shows is it's I think a kind of a hubris that's happened, in the Israeli establishment. I think, number one, they stopped treating Hamas as a serious threat. But number two, I think, the Israeli government has been so much more focused, not really on the immediate needs of Israeli security, but more on the goal of kind of annexing occupied Palestinian territory. I mean, I know one of the pieces that came out shortly after the massacre happened was that Israeli security forces had actually been diverted to the West Bank to protect, the illegal settlers who were stealing land over there. So I think, unfortunately, what we're seeing it's just a combination of factors that I think really at the heart of it is the now years-long obstinacy by the Israeli government, by successive Israeli governments, to really deal with the fundamental issue at heart, which is the unresolved Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the lack of a Palestinian state, and to divert focus to basically just trying to make that an impossibility instead of trying to find some way to ensure there's a lasting and stable peace in the region, and you end up with this horrific violence that we saw.
They're known, I guess we look at the IDF, we look at Israeli intelligence, we look at their military as almost being invulnerable. I mean, they really are quite a mighty force, and they're vigilant, from having the Iron Dome and telling us about Iran and the existential threat that they present, and on and on and on and on and on we go. How is it that something like this would be dismissed? I mean, it's just so horrific, and it was so wide, so broad in scale. I mean, and so specific. What?
I think it comes down to basically diverting resources and attention away from things like actually protecting national security to expansionist aims. I said, Israel's priority for the last many number of years, and certainly under the Netanyahu government, has been to increase illegal settlement activity in the West Bank. It's been to get the ball rolling on annexation plans. So I think we can think similarly about the intelligence failure that happened in the United States at the start of this century. I mean, this attack in Israel has been so many times compared to 9/11, and I think that comparison is apt for so many reasons, one of which is, of course, that 9/11 itself was the product of intelligence failures. I mean, again, it was the Bush administration did not take seriously the actual task of protecting U.S. national security. They were more focused on, their own geopolitical goals, one of which was basically, defending what it saw as U.S. interests in the Middle East and the U.S. presence in the Middle East, but not thinking about, how those things actually fed into kind of anti-American attitude that ultimately led to those attacks, and ultimately ignoring them until it became too late, at which point, of course, that terrible violence that was visited on civilians is then used as a justification for, another spree of horrific violence, this time from our side. And I think that's basically what we've seen here as well. It's not just that it was an intelligence failure, which is bad enough, that led to the deaths of these 1,200 people, but also that those deaths have since been used by this very far-right authoritarian government in Israel to carry out this terrible massacre on an even larger scale, and kind of put into motion long-standing plans to try and kind of squeeze out the Palestinian population from Gaza. So I think it's a tragically very apt comparison.
Well, we're moving into the 2024 season. I mean, the Iowa caucuses are just weeks away, and you've examined President Joe Biden, and you've been critical of him. Explain your thoughts about how he has handled all of this, because you talked about his backing of Israel in this particular conflict is making a mockery, I think, as you said, of rules-based world order. What do you mean by that? And what kind of hit do you think he might take electorally?
Yeah, well, the rules-based order, it's a good question. What is it? Because this is a term really just exclusively used by U.S. officials and by U.S. administrations. I mean, most people, when they think about the global order, they think about the system of international law that was, set up after World War II that is theoretically meant to govern how states behave and how states deal with each other and how you seek redress and justice for things that states do on the international stage. That's meant to be how the world works. The Biden administration especially, but previous administrations too, have used this kind of talk of the rules-based order, which could mean many things. It could mean international law. It also could mean basically just the specific and particular rules that U.S. presidential administrations want to abide by, and the ones that they simply ignore. But nonetheless, I mean, the Biden administration does seem to have this idea that they want the world to buy into an idea of a global order that is governed by some kind of coherent set of rules, one of which is that, if you look at some of the stuff that we've seen in Ukraine and some of the stuff that Russia's done, that includes you can't invade your neighbor, you can't annex your neighbor's land or any other country's land. You can't bomb civilian infrastructure or indiscriminately bomb civilians. If we look at the U.S. rhetoric on Ukraine, I would say those are at least three pretty big prongs of what the U.S. means when it talks about a rules-based order. Well, I mean, all of that is being completely thrown out the window now by the Biden administration steadfast backing for what Israel is doing, because Israel is indiscriminately bombing civilians. It is deliberately attacking civilian infrastructure. It has, it's not even really its neighbor. It's invaded the territories that it's illegally occupying already, and it's slowly annexing land in the West Bank illegally. So all of that looks very bad for any attempt to kind of convince the rest of the world to buy into this order. Now, in terms of the midterms and what's driving this decision-making by the administration, one of the criticisms I had of Biden in that book was that I did not think that he was attuned to the new political realities of our era that we are living through now. I think he was a guy who came up in a very different era of U.S. politics, And the lessons that he took away from that, I think, made him, I feared made him an inadequate leader for a time. I think some of those things he has challenged while he's been president, but I have to say on the issue of this war, not at all. I mean, I think he seems to be applying the lessons that he believed he had learned, from the era he came up in the 70s and the 80s, and that lesson is, you have to be pro-Israel no matter what, and for him, pro-Israel means just basically going along with whatever the Israeli government says and does, and that the political risks of defying that are greater than, or rather, the political risks of not supporting Israel are greater than the political risks of supporting it. I think that's not true anymore. That may have been true once upon a time. Now we're seeing in poll after poll, particularly with young voters, but of course also with crucial voting constituencies in swing states like Arab Americans and Muslim Americans, Biden's position is costing him. It's costing him dearly. It's I would say self-destructive, this position that his administration is taking, and I really wonder when they're going to wake up and realize that this is not only completely inhumane what they're backing, but also just politically suicidal.
Does he not know that this is costing America? You've got South Africa, which is an emerging superpower on the continent of Africa. They're going to take them to the ICC. Sure, they're not signatories, but that's a big deal. And you've got the EU, one of the chief spokespersons for the EU saying, wait a minute, you've got to observe humanitarian law. You're not doing that. You've got the Chinese foreign minister, Tony Blinken, who said, this is a red line. These civilian deaths are too much, and we must have a two-state solution. You keep going on. I mean, you've got India, you've got the global South. Does he not see that the world is looking askance at us over this issue in particular?
I mean, it's a good question. It's not just those states. I mean, we've had multiple reports of lower level staffers within the State Department and other parts of the U.S. government basically making clear to the White House this policy is terrible for U.S. interests. I mean, if U.S. interests are the kind of guiding light by which U.S. foreign policy is meant to be crafted to advance, then this is completely counterproductive to that. The U.S. is losing an entire generation of Arab populations, basically, support from them. That's what there was a State Department memo that came out that said that. There's been reports that diplomats in Arab states are basically telling the United States how angry the populations are in that part of the world over what they're seeing. And I mean, beyond that, there have been multiple warnings, including from U.S. officials, the head of the FBI. They've said that the U.S. support for what is happening and basically the global outrage at the fact that this is just allowed to go on and that we're witnessing this horror without any real attempt to stop it is actually fueling and probably going to fuel more anti-American terrorism. So it's a policy that not only is hurting U.S. standing around the world, but actually puts Americans at risk. And that's not even to go into the numerous instances now where U.S. service members who are posted in the Middle East have come under attack because of the U.S.'s support for what is going on, which all of which could very easily make the whole situation spiral into a wider regional war that could drag the United States, in which the Biden administration definitely does not want. So I mean, all of this is to say, just on every possible level, this is completely. There's no upsides for the United States here. This is all downsides for the United States, and as I mentioned before, for Biden himself if he wants to get reelected.
You know, Dwight McKee, I didn't get a chance to get to you on the other side. Is there any comment that you'd like to hear, that you'd like to make, any question? And Dwight is a brilliant social scientist from here in Chicago. And Dwight McKee.
Yeah, I see this a little different. I don't see this as intelligence failure. I see this as intelligence operation. And it's classic walk the dog, wag the dog to me. Is Netanyahu was struggling in Israel. They were about to throw him out of office, try to almost put him in jail. And all of a sudden, conveniently, this comes up and gives him a pretext to execute a policy that he'd already put in place, which was mass extermination and annexation of the Gaza, and a pretext for ethnic cleansing and genocide. And so I really do believe, I'm not saying that he necessarily created the situation, but I'm certain he provoked the situation in such a way that he is the one that benefited politically from it, even at the expense of his people who suffered and died from it. I really like to see our Congress do a congressional hearing about what they knew before in the involvement of Netanyahu in this fiasco before they give him any more funding. I think that you're funding these without all the information. You're giving him a carte blanche to do whatever he's been trying to do in terms of ethnic cleansing with no accountability. And I would hope that our Congress would do a congressional hearing to raise questions so we can find out what really went on and what they actually knew, and if there was an involvement from the government to provoke the situation in such a way to take full advantage of taking back this land that they've been plotting to take for the last 10 years.
Well, you know, Branko Markotic, staff writer for Jacobin, and Goodman Institute fellow in These Times magazines, two of my favorite magazines. You got to get his book, Yesterday's Man, The Case Against Joe Biden. But wait a minute, before I even ask you another question, why'd you write that book?
We know about it. I wrote it back in 2020, the very start of 2020, as when it came out just before the pandemic upended everything. So, you know, my hope was that people, as they were preparing to vote for the Democratic primary, would, you know, learn a little more about Joe Biden's history and, you know, really have a hard think about whether he was the best candidate to go after Trump. That didn't quite work out that way, as I'm sure we're all familiar with.
Well, everybody. Well, they shut down the primary for him. I mean, come on, it's not like it was fair. I'm just saying.
No, definitely. I mean, well, right here in Illinois and Chicago, I mean, there were some disgraceful scenes when the primary was being held here, with people basically being given the choice of you know, go out and risk getting sick from this virus that we keep telling people is incredibly deadly, or, you know, basically just have your vote thrown away. I mean, there were so many instances of people not even being able to go anywhere to vote because there was such chaos in the day. And I think actually the turnout for the Illinois primary was like
it was abysmal.
Markedly low. Yeah.
Remember, they closed more than 100 precincts. I mean, it's like, how do you do that? Well, but I have a couple of minutes left in this segment. What should our takeaway be? I see a lot of people in my chat line. They're feeling that this, as they look at more of this, and as I guess the trust, something has happened since October 7th. The trust that Americans had in Israel's word is not what it was. Am I incorrect? And so they're wondering if this was a pretext, or I'm just looking at what people are saying here right now.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's evidence that they kind of allowed this to happen. I think it was really just a failure of just complete hubris. But I do think that, and I agree that Netanyahu is using this to stay in power, basically, because he knows once the war stops, you know, all the domestic opposition he was facing before comes back to the fore. So, I mean, Israel's and Netanyahu are to some extent trapped by their own policy. They kind of have to keep going, basically to maintain their position, and because they've sort of used such maximalist rhetoric. Our takeaway from this, there's several takeaways. Number one, look, Israel, whatever you feel about the U.S. support for Israel for decades, Israel right now has gone through a real political transformation, and this is a country and to some extent even a wider society that has really gone over to the hard right. I mean, that where genocidal statements about Palestinians are increasingly tolerated, where the country has increasingly turned to ethno-nationalist policies, changing constitution to make clear that only Jewish citizens really have the full rights of Israeli citizenship, and passing laws that make it ever harder for Arab Israelis to function in society. So the United States support for Israel should not be based on some kind of, idealized idea of what the country once was. It should be based on what the conditions on the ground now are. And I mean, the conditions on the ground now are not just that Israel is kind of in this far-right fever, but it's also carrying out war crimes and terrible atrocities. And the U.S. has laws against arming countries that use its weapons to carry out human rights abuses. That law, and that military aid that the U.S. gives to Israel should be conditioned. It should not be unconditional. And the other takeaway, I think, is that asking nicely and being polite to the Israeli leadership, as the Biden administration has attempted to do, is not going to be effective for preventing it from doing what it is doing right now that we're all watching. The Biden administration has tried to play the nice guy. It has not worked. Israel just killed 700 Palestinians in 24 hours, right after Tony Blinken asked the Israeli leadership to be, hey, this time can you bomb a little more humanely? Asking.
Can you please stop? And I'm like, are you serious? Stay right there. I want you to finish your phone on the other side. Everybody stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Going to get this closing thought. I want to know what your thoughts are. Continue to tune in, everybody. Continue to weigh in with the morning stars. Love you, everybody. Can't wait to meet you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. For Uncle Marketich, I mean, poor Tracy, bless her heart. She listens every day, and I drive her nuts. It's clear because she said, a day has not gone by since you were syndicated. And you have something bad to say about Biden. I don't have anything bad to say about Biden. All I do is call balls and strikes. We give you I told you, I didn't write the book. Yesterday's man, the case against Joe Biden, but I did present information to you that would be in alignment with this because I followed him. I don't know if you have, Tracy, but I followed him as a child who was anti-busing. I followed him as a child when his position made us lose the only black U.S. senator that we had, Ed Brooke, who put his whole career on the line to save busing. I saw him go against Rodney King. That is to say, right after Rodney King was beaten, 2 weeks later, he was on the floor of the U.S. Senate sponsoring a police officer's Bill of Rights. I've seen him. I've watched him. I'm glad about the things that he's done now, but I've watched him. And I'm not going to back up off of that. And come on, I got the receipts. Let's go. Bronco, you were making your point. Bronco Marketich, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm just reacting, because I'm like, really, because I mean, yesterday's man, the case against Joe Biden. I mean, what he's doing on this world stage with this particular conflict is absolutely, it's doing serious damage. Serious damage. I mean, and I think it's damage that was in the making, Bronco. I really do. But now it's like the dam burst. And a lot of things that people are thinking and feeling, now it's all out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, Biden, his politics and how he functions as a politician, it's based on the lessons he took away from his formative years, and one of those lessons, I think broadly is that you have to try to defeat conservative policies, or to survive rather against conservative challenge. You have to move to the right and sort of take their policy positions preemptively before they can attack you for it. Which may have had some sort of logic in the 1980s, but I think it's a different country now, and I don't know how much he has really internalized how things have changed. I think another lesson he took away, there was a report from when he was running his very first campaign for Senate, and a campaign volunteer told the local newspaper in Delaware that basically he had been in a policy session with Biden on the Middle East, and Biden had said outright, his position was that Israel should return the occupied territory that it's occupying, and that it should make Jerusalem an international city. So that basically it could be used by both Palestinians and Israelis. But he admitted that would be political suicide. And so what he said was basically, if I take whatever pro-Israel position I take now, is the one that I will take for the rest of my career. Now, look, we don't have beyond that campaign volunteer's word, we don't necessarily have confirmation for that. But I mean, if you look at his career, it's not out of the ordinary. It fits very much with what he has done as a politician. He's always been very close to Israel. He's taken a lot of donations from the pro-Israel lobby, but he's also been pretty much a stalwart champion, and in some cases actually even gone more extreme than even Israeli leadership would, and sort of what he sees as a defense of Israeli interests. There was an instance in, I think, the 80s war in Lebanon where the Israeli prime minister at the time was actually shocked at how much more aggressive Biden was than even Israeli officials themselves were, and I think that comes from the fact that Biden sees his political survival and kind of hugging himself as close to Israeli leadership as possible.
Jonah Karsh, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, and that story that Bronco referenced about Prime Minister Menachem Begin in Israel is really noteworthy to me, because Begin was the leader of some of the right-wing Zionist militias. I believe he was one of the leaders of the Irgun or Stern Gang, one of the two, which were the two radical right-wing Zionist militias during the founding of the State of Israel that were at odds with the establishment. And he was involved in carrying out the massacre at Deir Yassin, which is this infamous massacre in 1948 where a nonviolent Palestinian village with no combatants was the victim of complete mass slaughter, ethnic cleansing. And even in one case, we have a confirmed story of in the documentary 1948 Creation and Catastrophe of a boy being put in an oven, really like horrific stuff. And there's a case to be made that Begin moderated later in his career. He made peace with Anwar Sadat in Egypt, but this story from the 80s during Lebanon of him with Jimmy Carter, or with Jimmy Carter was who negotiated peace with Joe Biden, where Joe Biden is on his right outflanking him, is really quite something, and I think revealing of this kind of visceral attachment that Joe Biden has to Israel that I think, it also comes from a different era, and politically now is causing him problems.
Bryce Green, are you still there? Bryce might have left to go to class. Well, Robert Patillo, your thoughts? Is Robert still there? Okay. Well, Dwight McKee?
I think it also plays into the fact that Joe Biden is an ardent Catholic and goes to Mass every morning. And so there is a Christian Zionism component to his belief system. And so he does also buy into the notion, I think, of Israel as being the chosen people. and have a right to a homeland, not just a homeland, but a Zionist state that they can be in charge of, and to execute in that the rebuilding of the temple, to fundamentalize back the religion and to turn it. I think he thinks it's an act of God that comes out of the Old Testament. And so I think you can't dismiss the fact that he is such an avid Catholic who goes to church every day, goes to Mass every day. And I think it plays in his theology and his politics. And to the detriment of people who don't co-sign that theology. And so he's willing to give them the license to bomb Israel into submission so that the existing Palestinians can be driven out and the state can be given over to its rightful owners, quote unquote, the original Jews, the original Israelis, which is actually the Zionists. It has really nothing to do with Judaism as it does Zionism, which is a whole different situation.
It's a whole different situation, and we cannot conflate the two. Branko Marketich, I want to find out for you as we close, where do you see all of this going? And we've got 15,000 plus dead, 700 people killed in a day over this past weekend, 10,000 bombs plus dropped. They said, as they have asked Palestinians to go to the south, they're living in horrific conditions. It was 1.3 million refugees last week. Now it's 1.8 million. They can't shower. They can barely use, a toilet. In fact, there are many toilets. They don't have enough toilets at all. Where do you see this going? I mean, because now Israel has said, now we're really going to bomb the South, where all the people the place to which the people have fled. I mean, really? What? What is this?
I mean, I can tell you where I hope it's not going. I hope it does not turn into a wider war and another, idiotic war that the United States has pulled into that ends up being a disaster for the region. And I think the longer this goes on, that risk gets higher and higher. I think realistically, what will happen is that if resistance continues in Western capitals, basically, if we continue to see civil disobedience and other forms of mass action taking place that are putting pressure on political leadership, not just in the United States, but all over the world, I think eventually this is going to come to a close. But the question is, how many more people do we have to see get killed and slaughtered before that happens? And my fear is that it's going to be possibly thousands more. It doesn't have to be that much, but it depends on, I think, how much pressure we as ordinary people are able to put on the political leadership of this country in particular. I mean, there are mounting calls now for a ceasefire within Congress, which is good to see. It's still not nearly enough, but it's rising, and I think that's a direct result of the grassroots action that's been taken in outrage of this war. I think beyond that, it's hard to know. I mean, look, even the Israeli leadership have basically said outright they don't really know what they're doing, what the next day looks like once this war is over. But I think clearly it's in everyone's, maybe not Netanyahu's, but it's in everyone else's best interest for there to be a permanent ceasefire, for that week-long pause we just had to be extended into something longer. And I would hope that once that happens, that there is a concerted attempt by the Biden administration, by the international community, by Israeli leadership itself, to actually try and finally create a Palestinian state, to finally actually enact the peace process that was started but never really actually followed up on, because that is the only way, that this violence is going to stop. This entire episode proves that you cannot just brutalize people for decades and decades and basically take away any hope of resolution to their plight and expect that that'll just be kind of quietly accepted. So I think I wish that is where it goes. My fear is if that does not happen, that we're just going to see a continuing cycle of violence, that we're going to see an uptick in terrorism against not just Israelis, but the United States and other Western states. I pray that doesn't happen, but I think that we have a choice, and depending on which one we take, the outcomes are either very bad or somewhat less bad.
But it's a very different world today than it was October 7th. The world opinion about the Palestinian question has changed. So no matter what, if they stop bombing tomorrow, I think that things are very different now. Is that what you see?
I mean, I think Israel's reputation and standing on not just the world stage, but I think actually crucially in the United States has been irreparably damaged.
Irreparably?
I think so. I mean, look, the fact is also even the Israeli, political opposition, the opposition to Netanyahu is not really that, more moderate than him on this. I mean, the leader of the Israeli opposition, Yair Lapid, he went on TV and he said basically, there are no illegal settlements. These are all biblical lands. So there's not really much of a kind of moderate alternative to Netanyahu, and so and I think the fact that just the level of brutality that we've seen over the past 2 months, I think has forever dented Israel's standing in the United States. I mean, what were once kind of considered fringe calls to condition military aid are actually getting quite a bit more support within the United States. So I think, ultimately by embarking on this course of action, I think Israel, or the Netanyahu government, has actually done greater political damage to Israel than, its enemies ever could have.
Well, what's for you? What are you looking at next in terms of your writings?
I mean, there's so many things happening in the world. Unfortunately, I have been working on a piece about Nikki Haley and her history for a little while, so I'm excited to be done with that and have that out. I think, even though there's very little chance she is going to be the Republican nominee, she's clearly positioning herself to be a political player in the Republican Party and U.S. politics more generally. So it's worth knowing a little more about her history. And beyond that,
you think she has a real shot?
No, I don't think so. Okay. I don't know, not to be the nominee. But I think she's going to be someone who's clearly going to be, or at least try to position herself to be influential within the Republican Party. What that actually looks like, I don't know at this stage, but I think it's clearly her trajectory.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be looking out for you. I love your work. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Dwight, well, Jonah, is there anything you'd like to say? And then, just whoever else is here. Jonah?
Not a ton to add. Just thanks for having me on as always, and appreciate the relationship we're building. As if not now.
Oh, I love you all. I love my kids. I think you're all the best. But what we'll do? We will work out a time where we can all meet tomorrow. Okay, and we'll find out.
Yes.
Dwight, can you 3:30? Would that work for you, Dwight?
Yeah, 3:30 is fine.
Okay, because that way we catch Mom before she leaves the office. Okay, so I'm going to reach out
to. And your father would be there as well.
Yes, don't worry. You'll see Reverend Jackson before my mother makes him go home and take a nap.
He needs it, I'm sure.
No, he will not agree. All he's going to do is That's all he's going to do. And then he's going to do what she says do, at least this time, because she won't be out of town yet. How about that?
He's earned the right to grumble.
Oh, please, nobody's thinking about my daddy. Just crazy, but he will be there too. Absolutely. So you get a chance to meet them both. But my mother, she's a powerhouse. You're going to enjoy her. Dwight McKee, you have any final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I think that in all of this, that the Netanyahu in that crowd did not anticipate the international backlash that's coming against them, and I think they don't have a real strategy on how to deal with that yet. And so that's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out with these other nation states that see this as genocidal and inhumane, and just as human beings sympathize with these children and these women being bombed for reasons they think is self-interest based and rather than military based. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the world community reacts to this. And Israel, who had really had a lot of equity built and a lot of sympathy built up coming out of World War II, how now much of that is neutralized. And now they're seen as not as the victims, but as the victimizers. That's new.
Well, that's it's new, and I think I think it changes the political calculus in a very, very big way. And so we'll see that. Well, I think part of what we're aiming to do as we work with If Not Now and many other groups is, I think, Jonah to have and Bronco to have a re-education, because for so long Zionism has been conflated with Judaism, and which has been conflated with Israel, which has been conflated with Jewish Americans, and on and on and on. And I think that we're all getting a tremendous re-education, Jonah. Would you not agree?
Yeah, this is this constant thing that we're always having to talk about, and If Not Now, in the movement, I think we have this particular role as Jews to be able to resist this conflation and use our credibility as Jews to say so. But it's really hard because some of the people that are invested in making that conflation real is the state of Israel. They're the most invested in it. So when you see this kind of an incident of anti-Semitism on the left, which does exist here and there, more than I would like to admit, certainly, where there is that conflation. Sometimes it's hard to blame people because they're doing exactly what Israel is trying to make them want to do, which is to say that all the Jews in the world are synonymous with the state of Israel. That's the whole conceit, is that it's about that's what it's about. So constantly having to resist that, and we're really trying to get our community to see beyond a framework that says that a nation state is what keeps us safe. It doesn't really have anything to do with our religion. There are people that want to say that certainly there's a Jewish connection religiously to the land of Israel. There's no doubt about that. But to say that the idea of a 19th, 20th century style nation state in that land is somewhere written in our liturgy or scripture is pretty wrong-headed, and so we're just really trying to help people to see past that and understand that when you keep people under your thumb, it's after a while you're not going to be safe either. So that's what we're going for.
Well, a peaceful society and a just world. Bronco, I'm going to give you the final word before we go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than this terrible war needs to come to a stop. It's in everyone's best interest. It's in American interest. It's, I would say, in Israeli interest. It's certainly in Palestinian interest to not be, just bombed to death every single day. I worry about what this is going to lead to long term. Certainly with whether it's going to lead to an uptick in terrorism. But I do think we are seeing a watershed moment as well. I think that the level of slaughter, I think, is going to accelerate. Where there's already been a kind of gradual shift in American public opinion, a generational shift among where American sympathies lie, whether with more with Israelis or more with Palestinians. That's slowly been changing to a more post-Palestinian position. I do think what we've seen over the past 2 months is going to just be a catalyst for that.
Well, I hope it does it. I hope it shifts towards not justice and not revenge. Let's just make things right. Well, because we can go to the other extreme and really begin to attack Jewish people, which I think is wrongheaded as well. You want to move toward a just society, a peaceful, peace-filled world, and that means you let go of revenge, you move to justice, and you move forward. And that certainly is my hope and my prayer, and that's good, and that's my work. That's what we have to do. At some point, everybody's got to stop. You have to cease fire. Now, nobody can pick up another gun. You can't slaughter 700 people in a 24-hour period. Come on, you can't justify that. You can't herd 1.8 million people into a part of the country and then start bombing them. That's not going to work. I mean, I don't. Hubris is a really dangerous thing. Excessive pride and arrogance. Got to watch that. So everybody, let's just keep on keeping on and continue to be prayerful. Branko Markovic, I want you to come back on the show anytime. One day I've got to bring you on to talk about yesterday's man. So
I'd love to. Well, and then Biden certainly has a history with your father as well, of course.
Really?
In the 88 campaign.
Really? Well, why am I not surprised?
They were not particularly happy with each other, as I recall.
Look, let me tell you something. He was awful. He called for people not to vote forever, and he was just dreadful. He was. But, even though a lot of people here would think that I would be angry about that, actually, personally, he's a very nice guy. He and my brothers and his sons, were fast friends. You don't do that in politics. You have opponents and you don't have enemies. Although he did everything he could to bury us, he did do that. But my father not only survived it, he thrived. He's the one who made it through the primary and made history. This man didn't even get into the primary. Come on, how am I going to get mad about that? I mean, no, really. But to be fair, he also had health challenges. And so, we were praying for him through that because he had a really, really hard time in that moment in his life. But he also, I think we're seeing this play out now, Branko. He wasn't, I think he's always been Senate timber, not presidential timber. And I think that's what we're seeing now. I mean, some people are creatures of, like Nancy Pelosi, not the vice president, not the president, but the Speaker of the House. Oh my gosh, that was her jam. Mitch McConnell, creature of the Senate. That's where he belongs. LBJ, presidential timber. I mean, it's just different people have different spaces where they fit, and LBJ fit beautifully in Congress when he was there, but he was able to make the transition. Everybody, you have to know where you fit. And I just think that he was, even though I disagreed with so much of what he did as a senator, I think that he was solid in that space. I think that the presidency for someone, I just think that the shoes, they don't fit. And we're watching it. I mean, because this is not just his positions. It's just something that didn't quite catch. It's not enough to vote against Trump. And I think that, we have to understand that too. That's what people did. And because I could never quite figure that out. And look, and Trump is still strong and growing in strength. They can say what they want to say. This joker is going to be the nominee of the party, and he could become president again. Y'all can get mad with me if you want to. I didn't do it. He's growing. His support is growing in the Black community. It's growing in the Latino community. It's growing, and you need to stop. Don't get angry with people. Ask them why. Ask them what it is about him that they like. You can't hate everybody. You can't. I mean, Look, I have loved a couple of 2 or 3 candidates in my life. After that, Branko, I'm done. Okay. my heart just doesn't go into politics that way anymore. It just doesn't. So, and even then, my father really impressed upon us how important it was for us not even to take the hits that he was taking personally. And he was taking them, Bronco. He was taking them. He was taking them, Jonah. Dwight saw it. They were unkind. They were so disrespectful to him, the Democratic Party. It was awful. That having been said, he said, this is not about me. This is not about us. This is about the people who are going to come through this door that we've opened. And this is about a peaceful society and a just world. This is about putting poverty on the agenda, the elimination of it. This is about putting Palestinian justice and Israeli security on the agenda. That is what he was running on. This was about universal single payer health care. This is what these things were about. And he said, you stay right there. He said, because if I am taken out tomorrow, and he was quite clear on that. He said, I want you to still fight for these things because these things will outlast you. He said, I'm trying to finish what Dr. King assigned me. My assignment from Dr. King was this. That's what he's gone. Now I'm here. And those of us who are left behind, this is what we're supposed to be doing. So that's it. But yeah, I mean, I'm Biden, bless his heart. Who got through the campaign, Bronco? We did. And made some history too. So it's bless his heart. Bless his heart. He's having some issues right now. And then I worry about his health too. I mean, there's just a lot, because people forget about, the brain issues that he had years ago. I mean, he's had some struggles, So, I pray for him. I do, bless his heart. Bless his heart. And now we have a real mess. You see what they did with the water. They were trying to mess with the water supply up in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. You don't think that is the only instance of cyber attacks on our infrastructure because of this. Ugh. I mean, this is awful. Awful. But please let me know I'm going to get you back on this show anytime you want to come back on. Anytime.
I'd love to. Yeah, definitely.
Anytime. You're here in Chicago, yes?
I am, yeah. I live in Chicago.
All right. You don't have to say where you are because we're about to come off the stream. Don't tell people where you are, but you know what? We're going to get you on, and we're going to get you by push one day so you can say hey to Reverend yourself. Jonah, you will see Reverend tomorrow, okay?
All right, wonderful. I'm looking forward to it.
What do you say? He is going to be there, right? Yeah, he'll be there.
Hey, I live in Evanston. You're great too, but
no, honey. I'm second helpings. What I'm going to do, but we're going to make sure that he's still in the building. And because my mother will be there and she'll be leaving town, he will. I just want to make sure that he'll be in the building, and so that you can be there. Okay.
All right. There. And you are just as much of an attraction.
Maybe. All right. So you know what? Wait a minute. You know what? I don't have that issue. Reverend has earned his place and space in your heart and in history. He has done that. He has done the work. He has done the work. And I support that. And it touches me greatly that you feel the way that you do about it. So just trust me. I don't, that's not my issue. I'm going to bring you to him. And then I'm going to tell him what you said.
All right. That's the way to do it.
Absolutely. Sending you much love. But I'll call you a little bit later because we're gonna firm up the time, okay?
Good. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely, sweetie. Oh, Dwight McKee, Bronco, thank you so much. You all are the best. Thank you for everything.
Thanks very much for having me. And I'm glad somebody out there is speaking out. There's a lot of McCarthyism right now happening around this issue. So I'm glad you.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Don't you sneak that in before you go? What do you mean about the McCarthyism? Because I know it's here. You can't say anything.
People losing their jobs over, even just the most anodyne pro-Palestinian posts or just criticism of the Israeli war effort. People being threatened with professional consequences, for saying particular things. I mean, it's been shocking to see, actually. I mean, we just saw Mehdi Hassan lose his position on MSNBC. One of the few anchors, not just on that network, but just cable news in general, who, has any criticism of the Israeli war effort and U.S. support for it. And mysteriously, his show was suddenly just taken away weeks after we learned that there was this quiet within MSNBC about the fact that he was, being critical of Israel. So yeah, there's a lot of incentives right now for people to people in positions like yours and other parts of the media to shut up and basically not say anything critical. So I think it's really important to defy that and stand strong and be willing to kind of make these criticisms.
I agree. I mean, because you're doing it. I think that when you really care for people or care for an entity, you do criticize. And you do it, you engage in loving critique, and sometimes that involves a scream or a shake. But you do it because you care. If you don't care about someone, you just let them. If you want to see someone look bad, let them walk out the restroom with the toilet tissue trailing on their shoe. You don't do that. You let people know, hey, stop. Hey, stop, wait. You do that. I mean, just you let people know. And if America is Israel's special friend, and they are, they have to tell them, and they've been telling them. But what did you say, Blinken? Pretty please, would you stop? No. You say no. You can't have this money if you're going to do this. Because not only are you hurting yourself, you are hurting me. What is that? You're hurting me now. Now I'm looking crazy on this world stage. I mean, please.
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, look, what MBS had Tony Blinken literally waiting all night. What an insult. He gets to Saudi Arabia. This man refuses to see him until the next day. He had to sit up and wait for hours. What? Take a hit. Get a clue. Oh, come on. Bronco, that is... You know where you've been. You don't know where you're going. Okay? These people think that this is the beginning of the dawn of the 20th century. No, this is the dawn. I mean, next century is going to be the African century. The rest of this century, they say, is going to be the Chinese century. Y'all better get a clue. And the Chinese said, we want a two-state solution, and Israel, you've crossed a red line. Come on. These people matter. They matter. They matter. Bronco, am I telling a falsehood?
No, you're completely right. I agree with everything you're saying.
So sending you much love. Can't wait to have you back. And we're gonna be having something in another week and a half or so, and I'm gonna let you know about that. Okay? At Push, we're gonna be gathering people together, and it'll be a good thing for you to cover. Yeah, Jonah, and Jonah you'll hear from him because Jonah will be in the center of it, helping to organize it.
Okay, then.
No, Jonah's like, yeah, we're writing. Yep, you are. And Reverend will tell you about that tomorrow. He's like, all right. Okay. Sending you all much love. God bless you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Matt, thank you for a great show. Sending you much love. My buddies Devin and Henry, I love you, love you, love you. Get well soon. Get well soon. And completely. Love you. God bless everybody. Love you, Morning Stars. Mwah.